Hi, so in today's video, we're going to be talking about the difference between a disorganized offender and an organized offender. And I'm also using the word unsub because I am a huge fan of the series Criminal Minds, and their terms kind of like stick to me, so I'm going to be also using the term unsub. So just so you know, an unsub is the offender or a person who does the crime. So anyway, before we start, I just also want to say that just because they have a bunch of disorganized qualities or characteristics about the crime does not mean that to be a disorganized offender, you have to have every single thing on the list. Most oftenly, there is not one person who will stick to every single thing on the list. There is not somebody who will be completely organized that often, and there's not somebody who will stick to all the disorganized crimes all the time too. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not just saying that you have to have an organized offender that has everything and a disorganized offender that has everything. So with that being out of the way, let's get into this. We're going to start with a disorganized offender. The first thing is they usually tend to live alone and near the crime scene. So they're being really sloppy because they're pointing more out to their location because they live right there. And they live alone because they can be more messy by themselves. You don't have somebody on your back telling you, hey, remember, you got this to do, you got all that to do. So yeah, like parents, just saying. Anyway, they also are usually below average intelligence. This is kind of very stereotypical because usually we think of a dumb person who does dumb things. And I'm not trying to be offensive, I'm just saying that's like what we generally think of when we think of a below average intelligence, that somebody who's really dumb is going to do really dumb things. They're going to have a really dumb crime scene. So yeah, they usually have below average intelligence. Socially incompetent. This basically means that they don't have any social skills. They're a loner taken to the next extreme. So they're like a little bit of hermit, which also ties into the fact of them living alone because they don't have to be more social, or they don't have another person to interact with, so they're kind of just like closed off. The next one is an unskilled employment. This also means that if they have an unskilled employment, this also can mean that they do not take a lot of control from their work. They are low in the ranks. They do not feel that sense of worth. They don't feel appreciated in what they're doing, so they kind of tend to take it out on others because they do not feel like they're being appreciated enough. That's only for some people. That's only for some unsubs, by the way. I'm not saying this for everybody. I'm just saying that's a general thing that tends to happen. So yeah, this also ties into the thing about below average intelligence because they cannot move higher in the ranks. They can't have a job that requires you to be really intelligent because they have a below average intelligence. The next is they do not prepare for the crime. This is the factor if you are trying to take out a man in a house and you get in there and it turns out, hey, this man is living with his wife and his children. So you're not preparing, you're not scoping out the area to really think of what can happen in the future. You're just thinking about, you're so tunnel visioned on this one thing that you cannot think of all these other things that are going to be happening. The next is that they are unlikely to use restraints, which means that they have a higher chance of that means basically they're just not using restraints. They are very loose. They'll knock somebody out and come back with them later, I guess, try to find something to come back to them later, and it turns out, hey, they woke up and they took off. That's just a scenario that can happen because they do not likely use restraints. The next is they improvise their weapon, which in simple terms means that they come into a house and, hey, there's this candlestick, there's a lamp, but they look at themselves and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't bring anything to actually commit this crime with. So they're going to take something from the crime scene, take something from the house, and try to use that because they need to find something to use because they forgot the weapon. The next is they leave the weapon, which doesn't really mean that you have a really clear case if somebody leaves the weapon, because even though people who are disorganized tend not to use gloves, even if they did use gloves, that basically means you just have a murder weapon. You don't really have anything else to go on. Even though in criminal profiling, the murder weapon is a choice that could help you find the unsub based on their weapon choices. But we're not talking about criminal profiling here. We're just talking about offenders that are disorganized and organized. Anyway, another thing is they have limited attempt at concealing their evidence. So if they use something to drug the victims, like a syringe, they're just going to leave it out there. They're not going to try to hide it. They're not going to try to hide the body. They're not going to try to hide that they beat up this body or they beat up this person. They're not going to try to really hide that. Okay, that is all for disorganized. So let's move on to an organized offender. The first is they have an orderly life. Kids, they're in a relationship. They basically have their stuff figured out. They're not that mess you see walking down the street with their hair looking like this. But anyway, so yeah, they can appear normal. They can have a wife. They can have kids. It just seems like their life, they got their stuff together. Next is that they're average high intelligence, meaning that they could be smart or they could just be your average human being that just is average, I guess. Yeah. And the next is they are socially confident. They are very social. They're outgoing, they're charismatic, they can talk their way out of things. They're a smooth talker. Again, doesn't have to be for everything, but usually they're socially confident. Next thing is that they plan their offenses. They are most likely the type who will be stalkers. They will watch a house and stake out, and they will think, oh, I've got to watch out for this person because they live with the person I'm trying to take out. So they'll scope out the area, they'll plan their offenses, and yeah. The next is that they use restraints. So they're not going to just be leaving a body on the ground if they're doing something, and they're less likely to have the chance of, oh yeah, I went away and oh my gosh, this person just escaped. They remove their weapon. This is the next thing, they remove the weapon. So you're not going to be leaving their weapon on the ground for everyone to see. They're going to take it with them. The next one is somebody who peers would not suspect. I added this myself because this is something that I find very, very common, or I guess people find very, very common because I don't know how well you're going to trust the sources of a 13-year-old, but also it's very, very common that the peers of this unsub would not suspect them. This is not the person who's very troubled, who has a record. So yeah, your peers would not suspect that this person actually committed it. The wife would not suspect it. The kids would suspect it. The next thing is that they are very good at their concealment of evidence. So they're going to be taking a lot of stuff with them. They're not going to be leaving a very, very messy crime scene. They could stage the body, but still, it'll be up to them what they do with it. They're going to really think out what they want to do. The next thing is that they bring a weapon. So they know, hey, if I'm going to stab this person, I am going to bring the knife myself because I don't want to go be rummaging through their kitchen trying to find a knife. So yeah, they will bring their weapon with them. Next is that they have a skilled employment, which means that they often take control in their workplace. They could be a boss, it could be something like a lawyer, they could be something that they find rewarding to themselves. And it's usually skilled because they're average high intelligence, which means they don't need to be having an unskilled job, which they don't take pride in, I guess. Okay, so that was all for this video. And again, I just want to say that these are the characteristics of a disorganized offender and an organized offender. They do not have to be every single thing in that category. So I'm not saying that every single person who commits a crime that's organized is going to be every single one of those things. I'm just saying that that is by the book what you categorize as a disorganized offender and an organized offender. And most oftenly you have a mixture of the two because that's just oftenly how it is. People cannot just be defined by this list of things. Everyone is unique, but these are just the stereotypical disorganized and organized offender. So thank you for watching, and that's all.